longtime S&P listener, good friend of the show, our buddy JC, thinks there just might be a debate here between you and me on this question. So, Mr. Price, you have the floor. Whatever you have to say first out of the gate.
I mean, I've already waited on this. We waited on it last week, I believe. And I said at that point, boo the F away, I think was my quote then. So I'm certainly not going to change my opinion at this point. I think it's pretty clear what people are booing. There is no disrespecting veterans or whatever. If you look up what the anthem is about on official government websites, it's deemed to be a patriotic song, designed to inspire pride. There's nothing about veterans and all that sort of stuff.
It's a national symbol of unity and pride.
Right,
Yep.
right. So people will interpret that however they want, but it's not a song about veterans. So we need to put that to rest before we get on with this.
Yeah, it is often used in commemorations. It is often used in the company of veterans and active service people. In fact, our friend Captain Greg Bell, former U.S. Army captain, is going to be at our Greta watch party tomorrow. He's in town. But no, it is not exclusively the domain of the military and those.
Also not a hallowed song. They are commissioned songs, hired tunes. This song has only been our national anthem since 1980. We had another national anthem.
Yes, well, we had God Save the Queen.
But we had Maple Leaf Forever, though, since Confederation. No one remembers that. Mm-hmm. It's been tossed aside.
I would argue they're hallowed. Like, we imbue them with meaning.
Well, we do, for sure, but we changed it completely. We swapped songs.
We did.
So it's,
we swapped flags, too. Tomorrow's Flag Day.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So we have to stop, making these too sacrilege here, these incursions here. And I think everybody's pretty clear what this is about. And I also find it a little ironic that people are A-okay with booing, the referees. They're A-okay with booing if there's a controversial hit. Then you can boo the players. Then you can insult the players by booing them. But you can't boo the symbology of the song for a very particular reason. It's not vague what's happening here. Everybody knows why it's happening.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would draw the distinction that when you're booing a referee after a bad call, when you're booing Brad Marchand at Rogers Arena because he's pantomiming lifting the Stanley Cup, or even the Bruins, at large, it's targeted booing.
Right.
And it's in the nature of cheering on the home team. It's not, for me, as serious, meaningful as booing an anthem. I'm no on the poll. No, I'm not okay with booing the American anthem. I think we're better than that. I think it's a matter of respect.
But we're not getting respect, so why should we give it?
They go low or he goes low. We go high.
Doesn't work here. Got to get into the mud.
Well, I wouldn't want our anthem booed, so I would afford our American friends and neighbors the same courtesy. Put yourself in their shoes. I don't think it's constructive in today's environment. I think it can only deepen the divide. There's only downside there for me. I would argue let's be pragmatic. Let's keep the American public on our side, and I do believe the American public at large is on our side. 77 million people voted for Donald Trump. Some 250 million Americans did not.
So our own Cam Robinson has done some reporting, texting with an American player on this, who said he didn't like it. But then Cam did the follow-up question, which I hope to God somebody does after the next American practice, and said, do you understand what it's about, that it's about the annexation threats from the president and calling the Canadian PM governor? And then the American player said this. He wanted to remain unnamed. He said, quote, yeah, when you look at it from that side, I wouldn't like another country threatening to swallow up mine, especially one as big as the U.S. I would probably do more than boo the anthem, end quote.
Wholeheartedly agree. Let's do more. Let's do sound policy. Let's do clear communication. Let's buy Canadian and support Canadian companies over American
That's
companies.
that's not what he was meaning.
Well,
he was meaning I would be a lot more emotional. I'd be a lot
Right.
more angry than just booing the anthem.
This whole talk about the 51st state and even the taking over of Gaza, these were not election promises. In fact, I'm not even sure they were mentioned on the campaign trail. Trump is a would-be strongman who, like Hitler and Putin and strongmen before him, fantasize about expanding their empire and their footprint. But like a lot of Trump musings, likely to die on the vine. How's that wall that Mexico was going to pay for going? Let's remember, he's the art of the deal guy, right? He's looking for Canada to increase defense and NATO spending and tighten the border. You think there's any chance over the next 4 years he's going to try and get 51st state done when inflation and immigration are far and away the top two priorities for the American public by every poll? Even his cabinet members, Blake, have been coolish on this. His borders are homing. When asked last week or a couple of weeks ago, leading up to February 1st, was asked about this, his answer was something along the lines of, well, that's what the president has said, and Canada's taken some measures, and it's not enough for him, but I'll let him decide. Like, that guy is a hard liner. He understands the southern border is their concern, not the northern border.
There is no bigger mouthpiece for a nation than the president.
For sure.
So if there is no respect being given, I don't know that it needs to be returned.
Well, here's the thing. Play this out. We can't win this fight. We can't win it militarily or economically over the long term. So let's not exacerbate the problem by disrespecting a symbol that hundreds of millions of Americans find important. I respect people's right to protest and boo. Go ahead if you want. But booing is a pacifier here. We're not the baby. He's the big baby. So let's conduct ourselves like millions of Canadians have for time immemorial, standing silently and respectfully for their anthem, for every anthem. It's that sort of behavior that has made this country internationally beloved, far more so than the United States. And I'd just as soon keep that up. To me, that's worth something.
If anything, Matt, what Canada is known for is not standing by. Canada is known for intervening. Canada is known for peacekeeping, for its military contributions. That's what we are known for.
Right.
Fighting for freedom.
We're there for the right wars from the jump.
This is our fight.
Right.
This is the first time we've actually had our own fight here. And so for people to react emotionally to it, I've got zero problem with it.
No, and I understand it's an emotional reaction. And look, before anybody gets the wrong idea, proud Canadian here, have had the great fortune of living in our 5 biggest cities across 4 different provinces. And I think we should absolutely stand up for ourselves in this fight. But again, let's do that with sound policy and clear communication and supporting Canadian people and businesses, not empty boorishness of booing somebody else's anthem. It achieves absolutely nothing. I think we can all agree on that, right?
It's a small form of protest that I think is acceptable. Eagle Bay in the chat says, what about mooning instead? I'm for that. It's a lot of bare asses in the air, but
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want to see 20,000 asses at the Bell Center tomorrow. I like what our listener and follower Don Elliott said. I think it would be a more powerful message if everybody just stayed silent. Huh? The American anthem plays and ends, and there's just silence.
yeah,
To me, that gets a greater message across without the sting of booing an anthem that, again, hundreds of millions of Americans find important, the same hundreds of millions who think this 51st state business is utter nonsense.
I think those hundreds of millions are fully understanding what that act is, though. I don't think they're insulted in the least.
Yeah, and I would disagree with that because here's the thing. It is the biggest news story here. It is not the biggest news story there. I would bet that you would have tens of, if not hundreds of millions of tens of millions of Americans who aren't even familiar with the story, Blake. Let's remember, there are
With the hockey story.
No, with the Canada story.
With the 51st state story?
Yeah.
What do you mean? It is every minute on CNN right now. What are you talking about?
No, it is not as big a story for them as it is for us.
It's a huge story.
Blake, you say CNN. Let's remember where tens
All
of
of them.
millions Americans get their news from. Like, there are large swaths of low information voters across the Midwest and in the lower right-hand
Matt,
corner.
he talks about it in the Oval Office
No,
every single day. I don't know how you do it. It's a
But
huge
Blake,
story.
believe it or not, there are tens of millions of people who are not transfixed and following the news cycle each and every day.
Well, I mean, the shelter
Or
people
may
that-
have heard of it, but forgot. What's that about again? Come on. It's the number one news story in Canada. Absolutely. We are all, or most of us, are aware. But what don't Americans do? See outside of their borders very well. Consider things outside of their borders.
Hey,
The
is it a
poll
fire hose?
after
Of,
poll there shows their domestic priorities are inflation, immigration, economy.
it's a fire
Not-
hose of a news cycle. So if, from that perspective, yeah, there's a lot going on. But this is a headline story south of the border. It just is.
Yeah, it's a headline story. It's not the headline story.
Well, I don't know that, again, in this day and age, I don't know that there is the headline story. There's so much, it's a fire hose.
It's Trump, right? It's a new TV show every day.
Yeah.
Got to keep them guessing, more confusion, more rantings, more rumblings.
One thing that we do need to put to rest emphatically here on the show as we move on from the poll question to some degree here. Seen a couple of people say sports is not politics. They should be 100% separate. Sports is not politics. Sports is and has always been very politically charged. Some of
Absolutely.
the biggest moments in sport, the Olympics in Munich, the Olympics in Lake Placid, the Olympics in Sarajevo, the Summit Series, Canada Cups in the early and mid 80s.
Jesse Owens in Berlin. I mean, on and on it goes.
Like,
On and
what
on
are
it
you
goes.
talking about?
Yeah, no.
Sports and politics doesn't mix.
No, of course. The IOC has tried to make that argument foolishly in the past. When you have a parade of nations walking into a stadium underneath their flag, when you play anthems for the gold medal winners, of course that's political.
But for the diehard hockey fan, the greatest moments in our country's hockey history were politically charged victories over the Soviet Union.
Yes.
Like, get your head out of your ass if you've got that opinion.
Yeah.
It's just wrong.
No,
it's emphatically wrong. Factually
but
wrong.
Blake, that speaks to some of the people that I am talking about that don't want to consider news or the world at large, just want the clean and tidy appreciation, love, joy of sports without any complicating factors. I understand that. It's not that simple. I disagree with it, but I can understand that viewpoint.